The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan J. Schlender presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Schlender.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus National Treasure, Book of Secrets, a 2007 adventure sequel that has Benjamin Gates and his friends reunited to not only clear his ancestor's name, but to discover a lost city of gold.
Benjamin,
Yes. Oh, no. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want it on the record that I love the first National Treasure movie. I have seen it many times, and I'm still not bored with it. So often, treasure hunting films are focused on places far away, like ancient Egypt, ancient China, so on. The closest you get to where I live is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is a big, fat meh. National Treasure cracked that code with the Masons. But beyond that, it was just fun. Enjoyable characters, clever puzzles, and an endless cat and mouse found not guilty in this court. So what's not to love? Well, the fact that it gave us its own Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows, Secrets, a movie that was rushed out too quickly. Crafting a puzzle like the first did, I'm sure took time. Time these people weren't willing to take because they felt that they had to strike while the iron was hot. The treasure and the timeline here do not add up. The characters are reset to zero and therefore less interesting. Whatever drugs Nick Cage ran out of during the first one that forced him to act normal for a change, he seemed to have been able to refill for this movie. It was just the easiest possible sequel they could have cranked out, and it stopped the franchise dead in its tracks. And I aim to make its name mud in this court, which is just one of the many historical facts, by the way, that this film plays very fast and loose with. Thinking that a lawyer like me wouldn't be bothered to take the time to research the legitimacy of these claims. But I have. Oh, I have. And I'll be dragging you all through the mud in this trial here today.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Ken, and I'm told this is the only way to pronounce it, Liu. Please present your opening statement.
All right. The prosecution makes no sense whatsoever. How can someone who claims to love the first National Treasure movie not love this one? Everything the first movie did well, this one did better. Ooh. In every single sense, National Treasure 2 is a true treasure of cinematic excellence. I aim to show, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that this movie has impeccable execution and is truly a proper sequel to the first movie, which was excellent in its own. Not only is the movie excellent, but it has unexplored depth. It is a movie that not only is entertaining, but offers a beautiful and meditative look on the American myth and offers a deep meditation on just how we can reconcile ourselves to our complicated past.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Haslar, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Thank you. One of the most annoying things a sequel can do is reset its characters back to zero, having learned nothing or accomplished nothing from the first film. Any change that has any resonance, is just wiped out here. This movie does that. Gates is trying to reprove his family's not insane, just like he did in the first one. He's trying to win over Abigail, even though they were together at the end of the last film, because they thought writing in a new adventure as a couple would just be too hard. Neither seems to have this clout that you think that they would have for finding the Templar treasure. Everyone but Wilkinson acts like Gates in particular doesn't know anything about historical puzzles. As a couple, though, all they do is have annoying couple fights, made worse by John Voight and Helen Mirren, who also just have annoying couple fights. This whole movie is like spending a night at the Barones from Everybody Loves Raymond without the humor or observational wit, and they really don't contribute much. Mirren's language expertise could easily have been replaced with a library scene, and all they do at the end is get separated from the group, and by they I mean John Voight and Helen Mirren. All they do is get separated from the group and bicker a bit, having a less complicated route before they reunite with the others. You know, it's just slightly less adventurous. Riley lost all of his money, having learned nothing. He just wrote a conspiracy theory book between the films. And the only time the Benjamin Gates name has any cachet in this movie is when it's used against Riley as to why chicks aren't interested in him. Not even sure why he included the other mysteries in this Templar treasure book, because the Templar treasure is enough to fill its own book on its own. But mostly they just want to do that to do some exposition and spread that around. He just does that Mission Impossible level government system hacking, making inane guesses at riddles like, oh, we must join hands and in a noble manner cross over the bird, just like he did in the first movie. That FBI boss, Sadusky, is back, providing possibly the biggest plot hole in this whole movie. That people ever got their news from MSN. But also to slide Gates like secret info while simultaneously threatening to arrest him. But one thing that this film really did well was one thing the first film really did well was subduing Nick Cage. Not so much the case here. This is crazy man Nick Cage, and that Buckingham Palace scene in particular is atrocious. Oh, look, you bought the little bobbies on us. I think you smell pretty. This is the same guy from the first film. It's not even close.
All right, let's give Mr. Liu a chance to respond to some of these character allegations.
I don't even know where to start. This is just a litany of nonsense being delivered by the prosecution. I have never heard anything more ridiculous in my life. Oh, the prosecution needs to go back to film school. Anyway, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what this movie is trying to do. So all these so-called character flaws make perfect sense once you understand what the movie is actually trying to do. The second movie, as I mentioned from the very beginning in my opening statement, is a deep meditation on what does it actually mean to tell the American story. So this is a movie deeply concerned about history. The characters here are trying to relive their own family history in the same way that the movie tries to excavate American history. Over and over again, what we're trying to do here is to think about what is mythological history. Gates was not trying to prove that his ancestors were not insane. He was trying to prove that his family did not commit the original sin of planning the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. This family tradition is mirrored in the way the entire movie is concerned with America's own difficulty with its own history, namely the slaughter of the indigenous peoples, which, and also the issue of slavery referenced by the Civil War setting.
We will be getting into that, sir.
In the same way that the movie is trying to deal with these two issues, Gates himself has to deal with the fact that he has to figure out whether his own family played a role in something that he found deeply shameful. The entire movie is circling around this idea of family legacy and national legacy. So it's not right to say that this movie does not do the right thing. In fact, in that comical adventure style exterior, underneath all of that exterior, there's actually a very interesting story being told about how are we supposed to think about history. All right, beyond all of that point, the idea that, you know, that there's an echo between the two couples across generations, this is just the movie's way of showing you generational trauma and reenactment of history is a national as well as a family theme. We can't escape our past because we keep on repeating the same mistakes over and over again. In fact, all the bits and pieces you mentioned about how the characters seem to learn nothing, can be sort of pointed to as an accusation directed against us as a whole society. We seem to keep on circling around the same set of trauma over and over again, never being able to quite escape it. I mean, the movie, being a comedy, cannot do this in a very explicit manner, so it has to do this in a sort of circuitous showing rather than telling manner. But if you're watching this movie with the proper receptivity, you can note that's the thing being echoed over and over again, in the same way that we repeat the errors of our forefathers. We are also burdened with trying to prove just how we can find an escape out of the maze of our own historical sins and historical burdens. So once you sort of see all of that, I think the movie makes perfect sense. And the so-called lack of character development is its own message.
So you're bringing up 2 points here. One about how it's deeply concerned about our own history, and 2, what that means as we move through it. So we will return to that second point in a moment, but I'll focus on that first one about it being concerned with our history, because it has many, many flaws as far as mapping what the actual history of any of this is. The actual treasure starts with Esteban, a slave shipwrecked in Florida in the 1520s. He somehow ended up in present-day South Dakota, shown Cibola, the city of gold, as a reward for having saved a chieftain, even though that would be quite the trek in the 1500s. And native tribes didn't really have the to work together in that cross of territory that the film implies. The movie doesn't really say how, but over 300 years later, the HMS Resolute, a British ship, was carrying a plank carved by Olmec or Incan people. It kind of plays around with both people detailing the city's location. Maybe Esteban took it. I don't know. That's my best guess. I will admit that would somewhat make sense. Anyway, the ship is restored by the Americans in 1856. This is actual history, and presented to Queen Victoria as a gift. The plank with the Olmec carvings, the fictional piece of that, apparently makes it into the hands of Queen Victoria at this time, or the Masons, or maybe both. It's frustratingly unclear. The Civil War starts in 1861, ends in 1865. 1865 is when the prologue takes place, when John Wilkes Booth is in possession of a cipher that Thomas Gates decodes, and this is meant to point to the La Boule lady in Paris, France. But that doesn't work because that was in 1880, after the war ends, that this thing was built. And that's even shown in the thing with those dates. The inscription of the Statue of Liberty they find says 1889 is what he has written on it. So that is way after the Civil War concluded. So there's no way that this cipher could reference the La Boule lady. But even squishing these dates together, as the film seems to want you to do, at the direction of either the Queen or the Masons, the plank is cut into 2 desks and made from that ship, one put in Buckingham, one in the Union president, not the Confederate president's desk. And I point out Union because that would be important to why the plot is so confusing, because they want the Confederates to win. So if for whatever reason this happened during or before or just after the Civil War, it makes no real sense for these crazy ass Masons to do this. But it makes even less sense for Victoria, who they say favored the South and gave the desk to the Union president, and then sent a separate letter to a Confederate general with all the clues needed to open the locks to the city. And who knows where she got all that information from. Whose side La Boule or the Masons were on in all this. It's just a mess. What makes this worse is Thomas Gates' name in that journal, because they sought him out as a decoder, and they seem to imply that the existence of the city would somehow mean that Gates was innocent of treason because of reasons. They don't really say. I mean, I know the intro shows that he tore the page out and tried to burn it so that they couldn't have that. But in present day, nobody knows that. That's just one possibility of a few. Another being that he was a conspirator with Victoria as the master codebreaker. So, finding the city doesn't say anything either way.
All right. Are there historical issues here, Ken?
Let me start this defense by pointing out and noting that the prosecution is undoubtedly very learned. My learned brother on the other side.
Too much time on Wikipedia. That's what I
is there's no doubt. I will stipulate for the record that the movie is not historically accurate in a factual sense. I will stipulate that for the record.
Clutch those pearls, ladies and gentlemen.
However, that completely misses the point. These National Treasure movies never were interested in historical facts. They were interested in the mythology of history. And on that front, it amply succeeds. All of the historical inaccuracies are clearly planned, designed, specific narrative techniques to emphasize what the story is actually trying to say. So let me point, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to a few exhibits of my own. First, the movie is deeply concerned with the idea of American exceptionalism, and it tries to subvert this idea of exceptionalism at every turn. Think about it. One of the symbols of America is the Statue of Liberty. And what does the movie highlight? There's more than one. There are multiple copies. Already we're seeing American exceptionalism being subverted. 2, we're told that the Resolute desk, the symbol of American power being shown in famous photographs, such as John F. Kennedy sitting there while his son is playing, that turns out to be not the only one. There's 2 Resolute desks. Now,
actually, there's 3.
Exactly. Historically, that's not even true. These are very different desks, but the movie portrays them as exactly the same. So again, you see this idea of doubling, of showing that American exceptionalism should be treated with deep skepticism. So the movie already sort of shows you that there's this idea that something about the way we tell American history is not quite right. What else does it do? It seems to offer multiple escape routes, if you will, from American history. At Mount Vernon, what do we find? We find a tunnel that leads out, that the president follows to come out. We hear this idea of there being a book for presidents. These are things outside of the system. They seem to suggest that under and under the sort of exterior of checks and balances in the American system, there are these hidden tunnels, hidden levers, hidden ways of exercising power outside of democratic control and democratic oversight. So this plays.
Objection. He's reaching, Your Honor. Clearly, the tunnels were because of Masons being involved, and they just love to make combinations and puzzles out of everything.
Let me finish. I'm
going to overrule the objection, but I am putting on my tinfoil hat just to be on the safe side.
That's my hat.
Thank you. So clearly there's something going on here. Now, as to the historical treasure, which, my learned colleague went on and made a big deal out of course the treasure makes no sense. How could Cibola be found in the Black Hills? It makes no sense. But what is the point of this? The point is the treasure stands for a unified idea of the colonial exploitation of the New World. So the Spanish conquistadors, all the way to the presidents being carved on Mount Rushmore, are sort of seen in the movie's narrative as one mythological scar of colonial exploitation, which we are told needs to be redeemed. Now, whether the movie actually offers a way for us to achieve that redemption is open to question, and we can sort of go on and talk about that.
Sure,
but it's clear that the movie creates this sort of complicated, nonsensical narrative, not because it was trying to tell historical facts, but trying to talk about the mythology of American history.
Well, you seem to suggest that it subverts the idea of American exceptionalism. I very much disagree. I think the film leans into it. One thing the first film did well was celebrate the tenets of the Founding Fathers in the founding of the Declaration of Independence. And though through the framing of that and the treasure, they act as if they were to stick to their ideals and stray away from their bad ones, they would split the treasure up because it's just too much for one person to have. So that symbology sort of works for both the treasure and the founding of the government. This film doesn't have that same kind of luck for a few reasons. One of them is Wilkinson, who is sort of representing that Confederate shame. But I think he deserves like a piece of that pie, at least in his head. It's baked in his head that because he's American and American founding fathers and ancestors deliberately try to separate themselves from that bad stuff, that shame is depicted on him, even though his ancestors seceded from the nation. So in present day, he's buying into that nationalism, right? He deserves a piece of that fame. If he can get a claim of that treasure, some of that cred and glory, he is then a part of that American birthright, that American morality that just seems to permeate everyone. Yes, he is a villain, but towards the end of this movie, he tries to have it both ways by being apologetic for smearing the Gaines family name, but never really exploring if he contributed to any of those fine ideals himself. Even while Gates is kidnapped, the president, there seems to be a tone of all presidents just sort of having an innate character that makes them great. Clearly, that's nationalistic and problematic. And these are Gates' words to the president, saying that you're so great. If you think of them as individuals or as a country, we can do no wrong ever, that is also problematic, which leads to the treasure. The treasure is Native American, not white colonialists. But the character of those people isn't even touched on. The only reason you might think that they're great is because they make bitchin' gold temples, right? In fact, I think the only line that they're given about their culture is that there's an altar where they slit the throats and cut hearts out, which makes it distinctly pro-colonialism because we appropriate that treasure at the film's conclusion. It's incorporated into American history because of the brave white explorers who found it, not because of the civilization that actually constructed it. It's manifest destiny. We own your asses now. The first time I watched it, it really didn't cross my mind. But once it did, I came to believe that this was all a conscious choice of the writers to avoid depicting their culture at all. They were just too busy trying to get, they were too busy getting all the white people's timelines wrong to put any real thought into it and rush it all out. But we can do better. We can admit that we as a country have made mistakes. Realizing and correcting your mistakes is the only way you grow.
In response, I simply offer your own prosecuting statement as exhibit.
Oh no! Don't do that. I hate it when people do that.
my point is your reading of the movie is exactly right. That is reflection. That is the subversion I'm talking about. The fact that you watched the movie and came away with these thoughts is the point. Now.
No, because Gates is on the side of
No.
those.
Let me point to you why this is the case. So think about what happens to the treasure at the very end. The president says the treasure is going to be studied and protected. What does that mean? What does studied and protected mean? Does that mean it's going to be given back to the people from whom, or the descendants of the people from whom it's being taken? It does not say that.
Nope.
It does not say that. But neither does it say that the treasure is going to be now somehow incorporated into the national treasury. It is simply held in the state of being studied and protected. And I think those words are actually very important to think about what that means. There is also a flooding of Mount Rushmore. What is this flooding meant to do? Well, Mount Rushmore, as we all know, is deeply symbolic and important in the national narrative about what we owe as a nation to the indigenous people of these lands. So I think most people know that the Black Hills are sacred and that the carving of these presidential heads in the Black Hills is extremely controversial and objected to by many of the native peoples.
Not stated in the movie, though.
Moreover, but let me finish. But I think that's the subtext that is meant to be in the audience's head. At the same time, you would also remember that the Supreme Court actually ruled that the taking of the Black Hills was not legal and that the people deserve compensation, which the indigenous peoples refused because they wished not to give up the claim. So you can sort of, in some ways, view the Black Hills as a land that has been stained by our colonial history, which is washed away symbolically by the flooding that occurs at the end of the movie. Notice the flooding washes the people, the colonial descendants of the colonial exploiters, out of the hills, leaving the treasure intact. I think that bit is symbolically important to think about what exactly this is doing. Moreover, we should also think about the scene near the end of the movie where all the explorers, quote unquote, are trying to balance themselves on this teetering platform. I think what that scene is trying to say is this whole idea of acknowledging our problems while
balance of power,
also
clearly.
moving forward is a difficult balancing act. And in fact, there may be no proper way out. Remember who was the first person to escape? the first person to jump out is, in fact, right, what we think of. Yes, exactly. What we think of as the most quote unquote stained individual. That is potent. What does that mean? That we have to let the shame out first? My point is that the movie
that's clearly not what was happening. He was just going to make them all die if they didn't give him his way.
The movie clearly offers multiple places for the audience to reflect on this complicated legacy and to think about what is the right thing to do. And the fact that the prosecution picked up on these hints and offered a very potent reading that I fully subscribe to shows that the movie succeeded.
All right, Mr.
And the golden idol clearly represents the balance of power and checks and balances. Yes, clearly.
Okay. Settle down, Mr. Haslar. Let's kick it back to you. If you can make any other points you have left.
Yeah, I have one last one. I just want to go off of a lot of the plot holes, even beyond the historical ones.
Very good.
Here, Gates is driving around London like he's James Bond, with Mitch Wilkinson and his men following people down, mowing people down in a Land Rover behind him. There's no way this guy who famously found the Templar treasure is getting away with being detained in Buckingham Palace like that, getting caught in a car chase with the evidence on traffic cam, and just flying away back to Washington with nary a legal hoop to jump. Further, there's no way a traffic cam could capture this monochrome, intricate designs of that plank, even if Riley could somehow hack the British CTV systems and get it. I'm surprised they didn't include a scene where he just enhances it a million times, like they do in CSI. This president saying that he couldn't help Gates unless the treasure is found similarly doesn't make sense. The two of them easily could have gone and got the Book of Secrets with a pardon, and it's supposed to, he's supposed to have access to this, and it's never really explained why he doesn't. And at the end of the movie, just sort of hand waves it all away. Instead, he lets Gates go after kidnapping him to perpetrate even more crimes, like evading capture, breaking into federal property, probably multiple traffic infractions, that even if he himself is okay with, that wouldn't fall under the blanket of what he might be able to pardon. Just ask Mike Lindell and Rudy Giuliani about that. Also, fun fact, I learned about the tour from the Brown Palace Hotel here in Denver. The President of the United States can never stay there because there are old tunnels that lead from Union Station and other places that aren't fully mapped out, and thus the building is deemed insecurable. So if Mount Vernon did have tunnels like the ones depicted here, that they know about some of them, the president would never be allowed to set foot there for the very reasons that they depict. There's insane moments like them balancing on that square plank he was referring to, where the creators didn't even bother to take the time to ask, what the hell is this thing for? They just thought it'd be cool. But the biggest pothole that bugged the hell out of me the first time I watched it was Mitch Wilkinson. Mitch's plan of smearing Thomas Gates' name to get him to find the Cibola treasure doesn't make any sense at all, especially with the overall goal he has of claiming credit, or at least partial credit, of finding the treasure. Gates loves solving puzzles. Have you met this guy? Hunting treasure and doing this? This is what he's all about. Wilkinson easily could have just gone the legal route and said, hey, you're the guy that found that Templar treasure, right? Funnily enough, I have a lead on another treasure because of this letter that Queen Victoria sent my great-grandfather. Can I show it to you? And maybe you can give me some partial credit and we can hunt this thing out together. Granted, we wouldn't have a movie then, but that's a lame reason to proceed writing a script with that big hole gaping right there. Instead, he just appears as a random man in the balcony with a torn page, and finding the treasure alludes to does nothing to exonerate any of the men involved on that page. All anyone has to do for his great-grandfather's words is to say that Gates was a traitor. It's just like, oh, my great-grandfather is better than your great-grandfather. He makes more money than your great-grandfather. That's not enough reason to clear any of these people's names. It's just a lame plot-moving device. And on that, the prosecution will rest.
All right. Thank you very much. And so, Ken, we're going to kick it over to you for any other exhibits that you would like to present in defense, or you can respond to anything Mr. Haslar has just said.
I will rebut first. Yes, you can point out all sorts of plot holes, but again, I want to remind everyone that the prosecution claimed to have liked the very first National Treasure, which has the same sort of plot holes.
No, they're done better.
Yes,
They're done better there.
Yes.
I'll allow it. I had to prosecute the original. I know what he's talking about. Please continue.
This is unfair. Mistrial. Jury, you heard him.
I guess the original might be guilty.
They're also, this is a movie, not a documentary. No one goes in there expecting everything to be some sort of well-designed scholarly exploration of all of these historical issues. What the movie was trying to do was to entertain, and on that ground it obviously succeeds. We're having such a great time talking about it. If this movie were not worth even criticizing, what are we doing here? Obviously the movie is silly, ridiculous, and full of plot holes, but that is part of its charm. That is the exact reason why Nicolas Cage has to act so over the top, to make you distracted enough to enjoy these ridiculous plot holes.
But he didn't have to in the first one. That's why the first one's better.
I think this is one of those things where we can debate what's better. I will say the first movie might be turned to a 10 and this one was turned to 11. That doesn't mean that this one is bad. It's just doing something slightly different. Finally, I just want to offer one more thing, which is, no matter how much we complain about this movie, the movie gets at least one thing absolutely accurate, which is, even if you are some sort of incredible famous historian, did all sorts of wonderful things to dig up historical facts, no one recognizes you when you go to a signing in a bookstore. And that is absolutely accurate.
That kid on the White House lawn did. You're the guy whose grandfather helped Thomas Booth.
So there's a ray of hope. There's a ray of hope.
Which is it? Which is it? You're trying to have it both ways.
Fantastic.
I rest my case.
Very good, sir. Both sides have rested their cases. We will now move to closing arguments. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you may begin.
Yes, for my closing, I'd like to dump even more plot holes on you because there were just too many for my time. Calvin Coolidge never set.
Big Ben's
no,
top
it's not
five.
a top five.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you better not. I got my lawyer cease and desist letter on him.
Calvin Coolidge never sat at the Resolute desk. Hayes used it once as a gift from Queen Victoria and a smattering of others up until Jackie Kennedy found it in storage and restored it. But Coolidge didn't use it. You'd think that would be an easy thing to get right, except if they wanted to have Mount Rushmore being carved, being tied as a grand cover-up. That's why they had to put that timeline together. So Coolidge is the one that found it, which also doesn't make any sense because laying out the Black Hills like that, you'd think would be sufficient enough for Coolidge to discern where the actual city was. If anything, with the Great Depression looming, you'd think the president would be all about finding the city and blowing up every mountain in the area with dynamite until they found it. And also why burn the plank? It makes no sense for him to do that. Also, there were 3 Resolute desks made, as we pointed out, but the other 2 don't resemble the presidential one at all. They're just like little side tables, really. The Olmecs never made it that far north. And even if they did, building an underground city doesn't make any sense at all. But even if that did, surely we'd see other cities between South America and there, which we don't. And if there were a golden city, it would be above ground and covered under a mountain because of dust and wind, with no secret levers to uncover it. There is no engraving on the Statue of Liberty in Paris, France. If there were, that kind of thing would be easily found on Wikipedia. French people are rude to Americans no matter how much you praise Montesquieu, and nobody ever thought got anything useful from MSN News. The first movie, though also impossible, worked within a framework of impossible stuff being hidden. A real world clue, like the clock on the bill, would lead to a secret brick in Liberty Hall that contains the glasses, not public-facing engravings that don't exist. It focused on the good points of the Founding Fathers, who believed that the treasure was so great and the power to rule was so great that no one man could have it, so the solution, break it up, give it to the people. This movie self-masturbates the American ideal so that we're all just so great, handsome, and intelligent. Simply because we are. Of course, any number of people of great presidents Any one of our great presidents would just notice that there's notches on the Resolute desk and try every possible year as a combination lock until they found what was hidden in it. Of course, they've got nothing better to do. This is sickening, and it deserves to be found guilty.
Thank you. Mr. Liu, please present your closing argument.
All right. So again, I refer everyone back to the passion of the prosecution. All right. Again, if the movie were so obviously horrible and bad, why are we even talking about it? The fact that we are responding so strongly to it means that there's something there. And let me again compare this movie to the first movie and tell you why it is the way it is. The first movie is a romanticization of the founding of the Republic. Foundings are easy. Foundings are always beautiful because you don't have to deal with any real problems. All you have is just ideals. So it's possible for that movie to be very lighthearted and to romanticize the founding in the way it did and to tell a mythological origin story for America. The second movie consciously took on something much darker and much more complicated. There's a reason why it starts out in the Civil War, the second founding of the American Republic, a crucial moment in our history. There's a reason why it goes all the way back to the idea of a treasure being taken from the indigenous peoples of the Americas. There's a reason why this movie has a hard time finding its balance. I refer you again to that scene of the characters trying to find balance on that moving plank. That is the movie's difficult task, which is reflected in the task of keeping this experiment working for 250 years. America is a very difficult experiment to keep going. It is very hard to keep its gears and wheels running. It's very hard to keep this thing that was imagined by a bunch of rich lawyers to make it sustainable for 300 plus million people. It is a difficult thing. The movie is trying to tell the story of the mythological history of trying to keep that experiment going. So of course it's going to be ugly, it's going to be messy, it's going to not make sense. But in some ways, America itself doesn't make sense. But we believe in this story passionately anyway. And so I tell you, the reason why the second movie, National Treasure 2, is so interesting and so flawed and so messy is because the idea of America itself is flawed and messy and nonetheless deeply interesting. I rest my case.
Thank you very much. Members of the jury, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, Mr. Maynard Bangs, and Mr. I'm gonna kidnap him. I'm gonna kidnap Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation chamber to render your verdict. I listened to an old episode. I said chamber once. I'm bringing it back.
I like chamber.
Thank you.
And if you ask me, the real national treasure was the friends we made along the way.
You had to have said that the first time. You had to have said that the first time.
Self-masturbating bailiff.
There are two different ways to masturbate, though, Rob. Come on.
Only two? I won't hear it. How dare you
This used to be
erase whatever my third form is.
I guess
all right.
You're the Maynard, yeah.
All right, guys. Interesting case. I think there were a lot of stretches on both sides.
I loved it.
I love that because no one wanted to give an inch in this balancing act. You see how it works? Let's hear from Ryan first.
First off, I want to de-escalate what Ben said about the Buckingham Palace scene and argue that it is the greatest scene in the film, in which Cage goes completely nutso. And literally, I mean, it's one of those scenes where it's like, you know that he looked at the script and was like, I'm not going to make another sequel. I'll never make a sequel to anything ever. And they showed him the Buckingham Palace and he's like, fuck yeah, let's do this. But I remember when we did the first National Treasure, I enjoyed it enough that the second I was done watching it on Disney Plus, I started watching the second one. And I noted that the plot synopsis was Benjamin Gates kidnaps the president to solve something or other. And that's like 5 minutes of the movie. And it even ends with kind of like a no harm, no foul. Like, yeah, you kidnapped me, but, you know, you're an okay dude, so we'll let it pass. But then on Ben's side, I hate the reset of characters in a sequel. I call it the Ghostbusters 2 law of undoing whatever progress has been done in the previous film. And I find it incredibly ironic that this film about American history, much less American exceptionalism, the president is a Canadian, which makes perfect sense. But but my main my main support of the National Treasure series is that, and I said this last time, if, like the original, it gets kids interested in history, then it's all worth it. And I sincerely believe that.
Well, what if it gets them interested in the wrong history? Schlenzo, what are you thinking?
So as the judge pointed out, I did have to prosecute the original. So I remember watching the first one with a very critical eye, and that I didn't quite bring to this one because I was just going to be in the jury, so I wanted to make sure I was easily swayed one way or the other. I found it to be pretty enjoyable and very much in line with the first one. So I'll give Ken a lot of credit there. Also, his appeal to American mythology, I really like, right? So we're not talking about history per se. Like we know that Zeus never really turned into a bull and did all that stuff, but that's important it's important to the Greek story, though. In America, our history is so much shorter. We're not even at 300 years yet. So having that, yeah, exactly. Having that compressed timeline, but still being able to play with the mythology of it, I think is very interesting. And I like some of the points that were made about American exception. Not whether I agree with them or not is neither here nor there, but whether the movie is trying to make those points, I think there's a colorable argument for it. I gotta disagree with Ben. Calvin Coolidge is exactly the kind of dude that would figure out a puzzle desk. No, it's true. He probably was like our smartest president. By IQ, I think Nixon's our smartest president.
He never sat at the desk.
I know, but maybe he found in storage when he was bored one day.
Yeah, but Nixon didn't have a soul, so that kind of made up for the whole intelligence part.
He bowled a perfect game in the White House. That has to count for something. But anyway, so I do appreciate, because I love history. So when Ben's actually laying out the real history and the real facts, it's that's really speaking to me. It's like, yeah, no, that's true. But
it's not hard to get some of that right.
No, exactly.
Your puzzle isn't good if you have to make up history to make it all work.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. But here's the thing too: we did see a lot of that in the first one as well, and it's just really how much it bugs you or not. And I think by Ken saying it's focusing on the mythology and this message about how we view our history. So in a way, the facts in and of themselves, while important, aren't important to the story and message, because you can apply that after you see the movie, saying, we are a complicated country and there is a lot going on, So I don't know. I found both arguments to be very good, very convincing, and I just feel that the deficiencies in this movie are equally present in the first one, So I just don't see that huge disparity that Ben's talking about, and I don't feel like the characters reverting is necessarily a bad thing, because again, it's hard for people to change. I do think the couple bickering fights, they were a little attenuated, but I do think you see that with people who get a lot of money, like Riley, they end up losing it. I mean, Benjamin Gates is a huge egomaniac, huge personality. Of course, he's going to trip over himself and be his own worst enemy, so I feel like there's a lot of connective tissue. I don't know how much we were expecting them to change based on how their personalities were presented at the beginning and end of the first movie and in this movie. So I just don't think that's as big a deal as you guys do. What are you thinking, Maynard?
I can suspend my disbelief for a lot of the history stuff. The stuff that was the hardest to swallow was that he could actually meet the president, get the president to wander away from the Secret Service into some secret tunnels, and anything that happened with the president, basically, in this movie, I was like, no, I'm willing to go with, Olmec treasure in the mountains, fine, but this, come on, the president is like, yeah, let's solve this mystery, bro, but it's got to be on the hush-hush,
Did you literally just make a Legends of the Hidden Temple reference?
I always am. But I liked Ken's points about American exceptionalism, though. Ken had a lot of great rebuts to these points. Some of them may have been stretches, but he was always ready with an answer, which is a great thing here in this court.
And they're colorable, though. You could say it's a stretch, but I don't think it's a reading that is out of bounds for what the movie's presenting.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Like them, there's
sometimes we get
liberties.
Sometimes we get a rebuttal that is not colorable, and we're like, okay, but I think these were a little more substantive.
Yeah, like, the cyclical trauma and how we're doomed to repeat mistakes. This wasn't brought up. One thing that bothered me in this movie, Wilkinson, I was waiting the whole time for the shoe to drop for him to be John Wilkes Booth's son, which is a popular conspiracy theory that Booth survived and had kids, and Wilkinson would have been a perfect name for it. And so if we're looking at this being about a story about redeeming ancestors' failures in the modern day, Gates could have found out that his ancestor was a Booth accomplice. Who cares? That's not you, and same thing with Wilkinson, just even if your ancestor was John Wilkes Booth, who cares? That's not you. You write your own story. The past is dead baggage. Who gives a shit about it? You tell your story nowadays. But they didn't go with something like that, which was so weird. You could have picked any name. Why go with Wilkinson? So I wonder if there's a version of the script out there with that idea.
Entirely possible. Ed Harris was so good. I love Ed Harris, though. He's always.
But Ed Harris, when he shows up in a movie, you're like, that's the bad guy.
Yeah,
instantly.
But he didn't go through with it in The Rock. He turned out he wasn't all that bad. I will say that passion and being able to talk about a movie is what we do here. So it's not evidence that the movie's not bad either. We could talk for 3 or 4 hours about truly awful movies. Sometimes the worst thing, the longer we'll talk. We don't know yet. That's in the future.
Awesome.
But I did think the puzzle was interesting enough. The reversion of characters didn't really bother me because I didn't remember them from the first one. I guess if I had rewatched the first one, I might have been like, oh, you're at that again. But I think getting to meet the mom too and getting to learn like, oh, you're really repeating the mistakes of your past here again. And maybe you're going to continue to do so too, Nick Cage. There's probably something to learn there. But we'll start locking it in. Ryan, the choice is yours and yours alone.
I think that this is honestly just as good a film as the first one, and I believe I found that one innocent. So I'm gonna keep on going on those on that track. I'm gonna say not guilty.
All right, that was Legend of the Hidden Temple reference as well. Schlenzo, what have you got?
Oh, you got me. Here, take my amulet, and okay, now I'm safe to give my verdict.
The pendant of life, you putz. You only have half a pendant. You only got across that one pool.
Exactly. They break in half, Dylan. You got to be careful with those things.
All right, I'm not going to lie to you. I've never seen Legends of the Hidden Temple.
That is not so. We've watched it together several times.
They make kids go on pool noodles across a little thing of water, and God, it's the best. It's the greatest.
It is great, and Nicolas Cage's character would be so good at it. I'm kind of with Ryan. It's like I really appreciate the arguments that Ben brought. They're there, they're real. But like, is this getting this movie all the way to bad with as enjoyable as it is, and with some of these really interesting arguments that Ken brought to the table? I think we're getting by today, so I'm going not guilty.
All right. Now, I did not think this film was good enough for us to unanimously say it's not guilty. And I thought Ben brought a ton of great historical points. And it's like, yes, it's a history movie. You can get that stuff right and still, like, there's other treasure. There could have been Viking treasure in the Black Hills. At least you're closer to like the Great Lakes and stuff. Oh yeah, don't get me started. They're never going to find anything on that island. So I think given that, I'm going to go guilty, but it won't matter since not guilty carries. So we should go out there and tell that very handsome judge.
All right. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus National Treasure, Book of Secrets, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
All right, order. The verdict is so rendered. National Treasure Book of Secrets is free to go, with a third movie to be made exploring the connection between pilgrims and aliens. As you know, ancient astronauts...
No. Well, let the man finish. I want to know.
Court is adjourned.
Aww.
See what you did,
This is Grumbly Grumblerson, the angriest, sporadically employed reporter at the Gabagool Gazette, reporting to you live outside the reels of justice. I won't lie to you. I don't like either of these fake lawyers or the movie. Big Ben Haslar, never heard of you. Would you care to share your irrelevant thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Oh, hello there, Mr. Bosnessa, sir. Misa back.
Jeez.
I got a confession to make to Ken. I actually do enjoy this movie. I enjoy both of them. I am a sucker for treasure hunting movies. But whenever you get like a movie that you like on this show, it just gives you a chance to like dive into it even deeper, which is always a pleasure. So it was very fun sparring with you, and I'm glad that this movie was not good.
Absolutely. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, I guess. And here comes Ken Liu. Excuse me, can we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict? I'm making the jerk-off motion with my hand, which you can't see on a podcast.
Self-masturbating.
No!
I'm just glad that I got to defend this movie. I mean, the National Treasure series, it's an excellent series of fun, adventurous blockbusters trying to make American history interesting to people. I mean, that is a noble mission. And again, like many people have said, if these movies get kids interested in history, then that is all that matters.
I believe that someone named Ryan came up with that, and I think he's a very smart human being. Thank you very
the
much.
one person he likes.
I'm required to say that. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis, you fuckers.
I don't know that was meaner than normal. You said you were going to do something way meaner than normal, and I would say that was on
I think
par.
the jerk-off motion is a little mean.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
Grumbly's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
But anyway, Ken, what keeps you busy when you're not here? What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I play a lot of video games.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's probably my main source of entertainment these days.
But like work kind of fun. What keeps you busy?
Oh, you mean actually?
What
Oh,
keeps you
that's
busy?
sort of fun.
Yeah.
Well,
what pays the dollars and lets you let people know that something is fun?
Well, I'm pretty lucky in that what I do for work is also kind of fun. I am a writer. I write speculative fiction. And I just have a new novel out. It's called All That We See or Seem, which is a quote from Edgar Allan Poe. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream.
Within a dream. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and All That We See or Seem is a techno thriller about a world in which AI is ubiquitous and a hacker named Julia Z has to save the world from not evil AI, but from people who would use AI to do terrible things.
That is what makes AI evil.
Yeah, and this just came out, right? Like a couple weeks ago, I think it just came out.
Yes, it just came out 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. I had a lot of fun working on that book, and it's the first book in a series. But I hope people will get a chance to check it out.
Do you know how many are going to be in the series, or are you just kind of winging it a little bit?
So this is sort of like National Treasure in the sense that
it's a franchise.
In the sense that you can read them in any order. They are independent. They are just about cool adventures that Julia Z goes on. I am contracted to write 3 books, and I've already turned 2 of them in. So we'll see. If I have a lot of fun with them, maybe I'll write more.
So meta narrative.
Yes.
Very cool.
May I suggest Oak Island as a great setting for a future one?
Hey, I always like that.
Yeah, go for it. That one's free. Now, where can people get this book?
You can. So the book is out, and it was released by Simon Schuster here in the U.S. and by Head of Zeus in the U.K. So you can get it anywhere you like to get your books, in the bookstores, Amazon if that's your thing, or the library, wherever.
Borders.
And did you do an audiobook?
I did not personally do the audiobook, but I did help them find the narrator who did the audiobook. Kat Cleve does the audiobook, and she's amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Or is it out now, or is it slated to come out?
It is out now. So
great.
If you're an Audible member or you buy audiobooks elsewhere, you can get it.
I love audiobooks. It's the best way because you can do it while you're driving.
I'm with you. Yeah, it's really great.
You could read real books while you're driving too, if you're brave enough, Ben. Come on.
Yeah, and people should not sleep on your other works too. You've got the Dandelion Dynasty, which I'm still reading through. It's very long. It's a whole dynasty after all. It's very
thank
good.
you.
It's very
Thank you.
very good. And then of course your the seminal short story, The Paper Menagerie, which everyone should. LeVar Burton Reed's did an episode on. That's actually how I found out who you were. As I heard that, I'm like,
Very cool.
yeah, I'm like, that's an amazing story. And then he did another one of your stories for Live in Boston. And I'm like, I wonder if this guy would do the show, So, and here you are. So,
that was so fun. That was fun. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, excellent.
You are
You're an
welcome back
excellent
whenever
author,
you
man.
want,
Absolutely,
sir.
yeah.
I the only thing that I wish I had done more was I should have done the Phoenix Wright objection more. That would have been awesome.
I've
You
been
did have
doing this
there's always
podcast
your
for
next
5
one.
years, and I've completely forgotten to ever say objection. So
But you had great lines. You had "Let me finish" and "What are we doing here?" So those are perfect for this show.
Those are pretty popular. And we're gonna have you back. You're gonna have to do National Treasure 3. It doesn't even have Nick Cage.
let's
in
do
it.
the television
show.
series.
It's a show.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
TV
man.
series, right?
Do we get to find out what page 47 is?
No.
Is that-
No, they reference it. They reference it as like there might be a third movie.
I
but,
forgot that too. I hate that cliffhanger stuff. I'm glad I voted guilty.
There's just too much to talk about, so I didn't bring it up.
That thing too. So now we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies you think people should see. So Ken, what is a movie you think people should see?
So I don't have a movie recommendation. I have a TV show recommendation.
All right, because you wanted to do it.
I do think that people should check out The Last of Us. It's an amazing TV adaptation of the video game, and I just think it's a beautifully done show. Really, really spectacular work.
With
Do you
my
have a favorite
boyfriend,
episode?
Pedro Pascal.
Jeez, right.
Pedro does a great job. Incredible acting, as does Bella Ramsey. They're both really wonderful.
You do have a favorite episode?
It's the last one I saw.
Oh, the
I mean,
flashback
what-
one. The flashback
I
one.
mean,
Yeah, everyone loves the flashback one.
The flashback ones are great. Yeah, they are great.
Or the Nick Offerman one.
Yeah, that's the Nick off. That's the one.
That's the Nick Offerman. That's the probably the most.
There's another
famous,
flashback one in season 2.
I have.
Yes.
Oh, there's a season 2. I
Yeah.
haven't
Yes.
seen that.
Yes.
It just ended like a couple months ago.
2 video games, 2 seasons. It's a perfect formula.
Nope, they're doing a third season.
Yeah, they're not
They're
done
gonna make
with
another video game then.
They're doing the Game of Thrones thing. They're gonna
Oh,
start
no.
making it up as they go along. That's cool. Ever since I saw that show, I've been eating more mushrooms, like just in case, to sort of balance out the numbers a bit. Take a few of them. down.
You wanna build up some immunity, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I'm a fun guy.
There's
not
no
bad.
way
Hey,
for you, sir.
Bro,
According to ancient astronaut theories.
No.
All right,
No.
okay.
no.
All right, Big Ben, what have you got? What's your recommendation?
Shame on you.
Uh, Unfortunately for me, Nick Cage has only been in a handful of films, so the library of movies of which to plunder for recommendation is super thin. So instead, oh wait, yeah, not that, the other way. But instead, I'll talk about this year's Good Fortune, because National Treasure movies are about finding them. See, still fits. Funnily enough, though I have no proof of it, I think Good Fortune still takes intentional digs at The Family Man, which is a Cage film that we put on trial here. Essentially, it's a take on It's a Wonderful Life, but flipping the script a bit by using the device as a commentary on our current class struggle between billionaires, now trillionaires, and the people who pee in water bottles while at work, while working in their warehouses. We have Keanu Reeves playing Deadpan Angel perfectly as he solemnly tries to convince Aziz Ansari that his life was better when he was doing TaskRabbit than switching his life with the tech bro played by Seth Rogen. This, of course, is not the case, as Reeves comes to realize that having money did indeed solve most of Ansari's problems. I'm a fan of Ansari's comedy from his works in Parks and Rec, but also his thoughtful book, Modern Romance. That thoughtfulness was put into the book also seems evident in this film, as he serves not only as actor but writer and director as well. Though the story is laced with comedy, he shows that he has a desire to understand both sides of these spectrums and diagnose the systemic problems we are currently faced with. There's just no way for some of these people to succeed. They're just making too little and burnt out all day trying to parlay anything they have into a new venture. All the while, AI and robots are looking to make them obsolete, so they won't have the capital to retrain themselves to do anything else, especially not with all the bills and then turning into late fees for not paying those initial bills. When he and Rogan switched places, I found it hilarious how they both tackled that humor of having so much money they didn't know what to spend it on one end and suffering through these systemic problems on the other. The film tries to diagnose and propose an actionable solution while providing some laughs for the immediate pain.
Chicken
surely-
nuggies.
Chicken
Chicken
nugget?
nuggies.
Chicken
There's
He
nuggies.
chicken
also did
nuggets.
the show Master of None, which
Awesome
has
show.
one
Excellent show.
episode that really stands out because he's the son of immigrants and he's like blowing off his parents, and like his dad has a flashback about how rough his life was in India and everything he had to do to come to America just for his son to like basically not be grateful. And like that's a running theme throughout that episode. It's very well done.
The best episode is Indians on Television.
Oh, you would say that because they reference Short Circuit.
Never seen
okay.
Short Circuit in my life.
How dare
Oh,
you?
that's
It's
a
got a
great movie.
robot, Ryan. Don't you love
Yeah.
movies with robots?
And it's the impetus of the
Well, my
episode.
name isn't Rob Maynard, so I'm not crazy about it. I'm
and
not
it
jerking
never
off over
will
him.
be.
I'm not doing
Self-masturbating.
self-masturbation.
Oh, I was just about to make myself masturbate. Oh, well, what are you going to do?
Oh, well.
Masturbating
Anyway,
to
I'm sure
yourself,
that Seth
guys.
Rogen picks himself up by his bootstraps and becomes rich all over again.
Nope.
Lenzo, what's your recommendation?
Well, Maynard, everyone by now knows I love a good mystery, and frankly, I'm getting so cocky watching them, I resolved to have them solved within the first hint of a clue being given, and I'm happy to report that's exactly what I did with The Woman in Cabin 10. Solved it within minutes into the
Doesn't
picture.
count if it's a Tubi movie.
No. It's a Netflix movie, and it's got Keira Knightley. Just listen, Ben.
Okay,
You'll
that
love
counts.
this.
That counts.
So, in defense of the film, though, it does not do much to obscure the mystery once the ball gets rolling. To the point where we're a 95-minute movie and you're asking, why do they take you so long to wrap things up? We know everything. I'm sad to report a feature like this is not Keira Knightley's strong suit, and the rest of the supporting cast was bland and utterly forgettable. I am truly struggling to figure out what the movie's point was, and to give up so early on the mystery, but just to have all the plot points still fall from that initial mystery with no extra twists or no extra intrigue. You just literally know everything that's going on. This one's going to slip off your brain before the credits even roll. Look, maybe I'm just too picky about my mysteries, but it seems like writers and filmmakers are increasingly gutless in this genre, opting for explaining things too early or twists so improbable you stand no chance of solving it yourself. Still, though, it's a short movie. It's on Netflix. The Woman in Cabin 18. Support your local library.
Cabin 10. Are you getting the numbers wrong on purpose? Is that a
What
bit
did I
in there?
say?
You said 18.
Oh, The Woman in Cabin 10. Then. Who cares? You're not actually going to watch this movie. Well, we've got one
That
fan
is
who's going to
true.
watch it.
That is
I
true, Dylan.
considered it because I know you mentioned it, but not now. But I don't know. Keira Knightley, I might still. Ryan, what have you got?
My truck-commendation this week is a bit of a time-traveling historical tale. Everyone is familiar with Rodgers and Hammerstein, the most
Of
successful
course.
song-making duo in the history of popular culture, beginning with the outstanding Oklahoma! Exclamation point, and continuing for decades. But what most people aren't aware of is that Rodgers used to have a different lyricist, Lorenz Hart. This brings me to a film I watched days ago as of this recording, 2025's Blue Moon, directed by one of my absolute favorite film artisans, Richard Linklater, and starring Ethan Hawke as Hart. The film would feel like a stage play in lesser hands, in that it takes place exclusively in one location at the bar at Sardi's, a very trendy New York establishment, as Hart waits for Rodgers to return from the premiere of Oklahoma and spends his time insulting his former partner, bitching about the industry and being bitchy in general, sharing his hopes for romancing a young woman, despite the fact that most people, the bartender mostly, believe him to be strictly homosexual, and it plays out basically in real time. The screenplay comes from Robert Kaplow, who also wrote another underrated Linklater film, Me and Orson Welles, and it perfectly captures a time and place. God knows how much of this is true and how much is invented, but I love when Hart suggested to author E.B. White the proper spelling of the name Stewart for a novel that White is writing. I shan't say which novel, but you should be able to guess. In case you couldn't tell, Hart is basically me. He's a little more loquacious, he's a little gayer, and more talented than I could ever aspire to be, but all those addendums aside, he's basically me. I have no idea when Blue Moon will be streaming or when, but if you didn't see it in theaters, you should look it up when it's time.
Wow, the fellow must bitch a lot then.
A lot of self-masturbation.
That's it. No, that's Ryan, you're the model of a modern major recommender. Now, fun fact, Schlenzo, 33 past presidents have had pet dogs while in the White House, making them the most popular presidential pet. In fact, I would say if there was one who didn't keep a dog as a pet, he could hardly even be considered presidential. Take that, William McKinley. And that's what brings me to my recommendation today, Good Boy from 2025. Starring certified good boy Indy as himself, it follows a courageous canine who must protect his dim-witted human from the vague evil that infests their new isolated home. How vague, you ask? So vague that I'm still not sure what it is, but it doesn't matter because the star of Good Boy is the good boy himself. Indy can act twice as good as the majority of Hollywood stars today and 12 times as good as Gal Gadot. Capable of switching between unease, alarm, and even apprehension at the wag of a tail. Now, I do not recommend this film to people who are distressed by scenes depicting doggos in danger, because poor Indy is almost constantly being threatened from the muddy baddies that possess his home. But he faces them with poise, grace, and courage, not even requiring a Scooby snack to do so, although one would be appreciated. I also don't recommend this film to anyone who doesn't want to own a dog, because by the end, you'll want a Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever, which is the kind Indy is, to call your very own. This film clocks in at 73 minutes, but I will say it's one of those rare instances where it could have stood to be longer. Maybe another 20 minutes or so just to flesh out some of that vague evil a little bit more. But if it isn't long enough for you, you can always watch it twice. And it's currently streaming on Shudder. Support your local good boy.
Maynard has such a crush on Gal Gadot. You're always picking on her.
I know, that's true. But not as much as Indy, who's my new favorite Hollywood star. So hopefully we'll get even more Good Boy movies. Good Boy 2? Good Boy 3? Who knows? Maybe a Ghostbusters reboot where they're all dogs? Ken, you would watch that, right?
Probably.
I would.
Ghost Barkers?
No, Ghost Buds. And it's like Air Bud.
Okay, that works too.
And with that, we are all at a show. But we want to thank our guest, Ken Liu, for joining us. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you for having me. That was so much fun.
We are going to have you back for National Treasure, the TV series. You're going to have to defend the whole thing or some other terrible Nicolas Cage film. We'll find something.
Oh, God.
And we look forward to that. And we hope everyone else will join us as well as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Count it.
Symbology.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.